Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. Sap, we're going to start this show off with what we have been starting the past, it seems like 100 shows off with, and that's Kyrie Irving and the Brooklyn Nets. The situation's gotten weirder, if you could say that, as the Nets have decided to take a 12th hour swerve and not go with Ime Udoka. Basically, Sap giving so many hours of talk radio and TV in our podcast last week and making it irrelevant, as we were expecting they would. And they're going to go with Jacque Vaughn, who was the interim coach, and they're going to elevate him to the head coach. And that's what they decided to do at the 11th hour there, Sap. I think most people, can put two and two together and realize that what happened was the league office said, hey, Brooklyn, please don't do this. This is just not a good look for the league at all. And so they had a pretty good, option in-house, and that's what they went with in Jacque Vaughn.
All eyes are on the Brooklyn Nets, right? A middling team in the Eastern Conference that is dominating the news, kind of like the Lakers, who are even worse than them on the court, are dominating the news in the Western Conference. That's how we are in the NBA. Not many people talking about Milwaukee or the Celtics or Cleveland or Denver or, God forbid, the Utah Jazz, who are trying to tank and actually have the best record in the Western Conference. I tweeted out earlier that Danny Ainge is on a collision course to be NBA Executive of the Year, something he doesn't want to be. He's trying to tear things down, but the Utah Jazz have been a really big surprise. But as we look at Brooklyn, I think it kind of is connected with Kyrie Irving, because a lot of negative press, not just in the league, but for the Brooklyn Nets with the Kyrie Irving situation. Now we're going to talk about that. But then you add in hiring Ime Udoka, or potentially hiring Ime Udoka. They never did, but all the reports were that is what was going to happen. It would have been really two bad stories for the Brooklyn Nets. And I think that you can make a case that Kyrie Irving got yet another coach fired before Ime Udoka even came on board. Yeah. It didn't happen. And because Kyrie Irving had done so much damage in the previous 2 weeks that the Nets are still trying to deal with that I think you're right. The league, which is still trying to work through this Kyrie Irving situation, essentially told Joe Tsai, the owner of the Brooklyn Nets, look, let's kick this can down the road. Maybe he ends up coaching somewhere else next year. It just appears that Ime Udoka is going to serve a 1-year suspension. The Celtics will pay half his salary, and then in the offseason, when things simmer down, he'll probably come back, because there'll be 7 or 8 new coaches in the league. He'll be one of them. It won't be happening in the first month of the season, and it'll be a year away from whatever the hell happened with the Celtics late last season or in the offseason. So I think that's essentially what the Nets are doing. And they've got a good in-house candidate in Jacque Vaughn. He has coaching experience. He was not very successful in Orlando, but again, didn't have much talent there. A decade ago, he was an interim coach for the Nets at the end of 2019-2020, was 7-3, and they're playing a little bit better now for him. Part of that may be that Kyrie Irving's not playing, that having Kyrie Irving away from the facility is actually a benefit for the Brooklyn Nets.
I mean, I think that's exactly what it is. I also, I'm happy for Jacque Vaughn. Yeah, I remember him as a player, and it's always good to see minority candidates get, more chances, because it so often it's the retread of the typical, it's a white coach who gets chances after chance after chance. We see what just happened in the NFL this week with Jeff Saturday somehow becoming a coach of an NFL team, even though he has no experience. And so I'm glad that the Nets were able to go with a minority candidate here and Jacque Vaughn. And it would have been an awful look for the league and everybody else if the league said, hey, don't hire Ime Udoka, and then they went with a white head coach. That would have been really bad. So I think this is the best situation, honestly, for the Nets. Gives Jacque Vaughn a nice, story, a good second chance. The Nets seem to be playing better for him. I think that is in large part, like you said, Seth, because Kyrie is not in the building. And I think it's also better for Ime Udoka to not be thrown into just a situation that's so toxic. And, let him serve the year suspension. The Celtics and him can part ways, whatever they want to call it. And then he can sort of start fresh with a team that has a clean slate. I think that's the best thing for all parties here, Sal.
I think what could happen is if Philadelphia doesn't go as far in the postseason as they expect, or some people expect, that they'll move on from Doc Rivers. Ime Udoka, who served 1 year as an assistant coach in Philadelphia a couple years ago, maybe he becomes the leading candidate for the 76ers. And again, I think having that happen in the offseason will be much easier to deal with because there'll be 6, 7, 8 new coaches next year. He'll be one of them. And again, it'll be a year removed from whatever happened with the Celtics late last season in the offseason. And again, the further away you get from it, I think people have a tendency of forgetting whatever happened. And I also think that there were probably prominent women in the Nets organization that got in the ear of Joe Tsai or someone else in the organization said, pump the brakes a little bit. Maybe we're not comfortable. I mean, the Nets really are a mess. You've got the anti-Semite in Kyrie Irving. You've got the sexual predator in Ime Udoka. I mean, who's next? I mean, is going to be someone to bat the LGBTQ community and who's going to come on board and, have racist comments. The Nets are like a penal colony at this point. So I think this was the right move. And you bring in a solid former player, former coach like Jacque Vaughn, who played for and coached under Greg Popovich. That's always a good thing.
Yeah, and the players seem to like him and respect him. There was a video of him after, he got the win, after getting that head coaching title, and the players seem really excited for him. So I think it's, the Nets need some good vibes or PR. Just sending Kyrie Irving away can only do so much. But, Jacque Vaughn seems to be somebody that they at least trust to make the situation a little bit less toxic there, Sap. But, they still have to deal with the specter of Kyrie, as you mentioned. He's not with the team right now as he's serving a minimum 5-game suspension. He is eligible to return this weekend. I don't think that is going to happen realistically. I'm not sure that he's ever going to play for the Nets again, Sap. But before we get to that, the Nets have put in place a laundry list of things that Kyrie needs to do before he can rejoin the team. And they are the following 6 items. Apologize/condemn the movie that he put out there. I guess he's technically done that in that he put out a statement on Instagram. I don't know if that should count or is good enough, but we can debate that sometime later. A $500,000 donation to an anti-hate cause or anti-hate causes. As far as I know, he has not done that yet.
Well, he did offer that. He did offer that a week ago, and they refused it. So he's going to have to find some other group that he can kick over $500,000, which is chump change for him. I'm sure there'll be someone that will accept the $500,000 because some of these organizations, they work on a shoestring, and sometimes they may have to, bite their tongue, bite their upper lip, and take the check.
Yeah, so we'll see what goes on, who he picks there. Sensitivity training, anti-Semitic training. Meet with the Anti-Defamation League and Jewish leaders, and then meet with Joe Tsai, the owner of the Nets, to demonstrate an understanding of, everything that happened. Sap, a lot of this is now being debated. Is this fair? Is this the best way to do it? The players union is not happy. Jaylen Brown, LeBron James, they've spoken out about it. They think it's an unfair thing. This seems to, if anything, have turned people more on Kyrie's side. I don't know that the Nets have handled this situation well. I think that maybe a suspension without having to put this list of things was maybe a better way to go and keep this internal. But, it's out there and we have to see what happens.
Yeah, and I could see why Jaylen Brown and LeBron James have spoken out against these parameters because they're not negotiated in the CBA. That's really where they're going with this. Look, I'm not here to support Kyrie Irving. I think what he has done, what he has said is wrong. I think he needs to apologize. The apology I would like to see would be a verbal apology, not on Instagram, maybe at a press conference or on video where he just apologizes as a human being. I've said this a million times. If you and I have a fight, my first method of trying to apologize would be to meet with you. If that doesn't work, I'm going to FaceTime you. And then if that doesn't work, I'm going to call you on the phone. Texting isn't the same as those other 3. Certainly, I don't think Instagram is the same as doing this on video or doing it at a press conference. So I think that's where the apology should be.
Especially because, we know these people all have a million handlers, PR people, whatever. And so who's to say that Kyrie even wrote that statement? So the sort of anonymity of writing something, especially if it's online, not a written letter like back in the old days where you could say, oh, yeah, this is Kyrie Irving's handwriting. You don't even know. You can't really tell if he's sincere unless he says it in person. So everybody's saying, oh, you apologize. Like, just say it in person. Why is that so hard?
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be long. It could be
No.
45 seconds. I mean, again, with Kyrie, things tend to get very verbose with him. There's a word salad with him. He's not into brevity. So there'll be 17 sentences that some don't make much sense or they contradict the other sentence, but just a verbal apology. And as far as the $500,000 donation, fine. I mean, again, that's throwing money at the problem, which can help, I guess, if those organizations that benefit from that use that for good use.
Right. It's symbolic, whatever.
It's symbolic, right? I mean, how much are you going to have him contribute that's really going to impact him? That's a rounding error in his checkbook, for God's sakes. As far as the sensitivity training, I mean, okay, I get all that. And then I think at some point he needs to sit down with Joe Tsai and make sure that he's on board, as much that he's just going to be focused on playing from that standpoint, and you move on from there. I mean, this other stuff, it sounds all well and good, but maybe it is a bit too much, and now he's becoming the sympathetic character that he likes to be the martyr, right? And you're kind of going right into his playbook. I don't know if he's ever going to play again for the Brooklyn Nets. I don't know if he's ever going to play in the NBA again. You don't know with Kyrie Irving. He may just be so thick-headed and stubborn that he says, I'm not going to adhere to these 6 different parameters that Joe Tsai has put out there, because this is still being handled by the team, not the league. So, right. They could still be at an impasse at some point. Look, if the Nets go 12-4 in the 16 games that he's not with them, they may just say, we don't care if you come back or not. Actually, we're playing better without you, which doesn't seem to make much sense because the guy was playing at a very high level. But again, it's a lot easier to go to the arena when you don't have the specter of Kyrie Irving maybe in the locker room being dour, garnering all this unintended attention, and it kind of saps the energy of a team. Whereas if he's not there, you just go play basketball and maybe you play better.
Yeah, I think that obviously he's a fantastic individual player, Sap, and we've talked about his skills many times, and there's no denying that. He's spectacular on the court, but I've never viewed him as somebody that impacts winning, especially at a high level. Mm-hmm. When he left the Cavaliers. They still made the NBA Finals with LeBron James and a bunch of bums essentially. When he left the Celtics, and even when the season he was hurt with the Celtics, they reached the Eastern Conference Finals. The Celtics improved once he left, and I know there's a tiny sample size, but in a couple of games he's been gone, Sap, the Nets have been playing a lot happier. It seems like a lot freer. So I don't know that he's a player that impacts winning. I would argue he's not. And especially because when you have somebody that's so toxic and all the energy is being directed towards him, whether it's, good or bad or ugly, which it's gotten ugly in Brooklyn, it's hard to think about anything else. And so when he's kind of removed from the equation, the Nets, we've said this a million times, they have a talented roster beyond just, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And I think those guys can, play a little bit freer knowing that they don't have Kyrie Irving anywhere, within 100-mile radius of them. So it's I could see that that's the case. Then that's just like, kind of just stay away, Kyrie. And at some point just go, we'll pay you and you stay away from the team. And, that'll be that. I don't know what's going to end up happening with him, Sap, but I get from the Players Association, like you said, why they're not happy about this. But he's made it so hard on himself by just being so, so much of a a-hole. Mm-hmm. Just so I don't know. I obviously am not going to feel bad for him, but I get why some people might, because this looks like, man, they're really just like putting the Kyrie through his paces and being really unfair and really trying to make an example of him. But like at the same time, he needs to take, or people need to take some responsibility for his actions. Like if he had just in his second press conference to address this said he was sorry and not been a total D-bag about it, it would have been completely over with.
Yeah, and he couldn't do that. So at this point, do the Nets look to trade him? He's got this year remaining on his contract, then he can become a free agent. And who's the team exactly that's going to trade for him? Are the Lakers that desperate, who have the second worst record in basketball, and that we know that LeBron would like to have Kyrie Irving as his teammate? At least I think he would. Are the Lakers that desperate that they would trade for Kyrie Irving? And what would they give the Nets in return? They don't have first-round picks till 2027 and 2029. Those are the next 2 first-round picks they have. They seem to be holding on to those for dear life. Is that a possibility? All you need is one team that's interested in him.
Sure.
He is a great player on the court, And maybe LeBron is the one guy that keeps him focused, although I don't even know if that's the case because LeBron's having enough trouble keeping himself focused along with Anthony Davis and Russell Westbrook. And let's send Kyrie from the city with the biggest Jewish population in the world to a city that has the third biggest Jewish population in the world in Los Angeles. Like maybe send him to Utah. Maybe Salt Lake City be a good place for him since there's probably a very small Jewish population there. Like if he continues to send out things that would offend people, that's not a good thing. I want the only apology you need is to see him apologize, not through Instagram, not through anything written. It has to be him looking into a camera and saying it, because that's when you can really feel the apology, not in written statements or even some sort of edited video where you don't get to see him. That's one of those old axioms that you need to see it in their eyes. The apology is being told through their eyes, not just through their mouth. And that's where it has to be. And then you can move on from that point.
Absolutely. Because until that point, I'm going to believe that it was, one of his PR people who wrote that statement, because the 2 times we saw him address it, he didn't look apologetic or contrite at all. So why did that suddenly change, 12 hours later? I really want to see him address it in person. And so we'll see if we ever get to that point. But, Sap, moving on from the Nets, because again, it's just like an endless cycle of negativity with them. God, it must be hard to be a Nets fan right now, or if they have any.
They get about 4 or 5. It's still a city dominated by the Knicks.
You did mention the Lakers, your Los Angeles Lakers, because your guy LeBron James is on that team. Things are not going well in LA, Sap. They are now 2-9 on the season, and now LeBron James has a foot injury. Okay, Sap, here's the question now. We're obviously still early in the season, whatever, but I have to ask, is there any salvaging this season for the Lakers at this point?
No, I don't see it unless they make an incredible roster move, right? Miles Turner and Buddy Hield from Indiana for those 2 first-round picks. That would improve them. Buddy Hield's a really good perimeter shooter. Miles Turner's coming off, a 32-17 game with the Pacers. I think if you added those 2
and
players,
asking to be traded to the Lakers, he said in a press conference, he's like, trade me.
Yeah, it's out there. It's right. It's very transparent about this. And look, Russell Westbrook has not been the problem in LA this year. He's not played that poorly. He's coming off the bench. He's accepted his role. He's actually played pretty well. It's Anthony Davis continues to regress, and LeBron is not the player he used to be. We understand that. He's going to be 38 in December. Right. So obviously to expect him to be what he was 2, 3, 4 years ago is a bit much. No, I don't see it being salvageable unless they trade Westbrook and those 2 first-round picks to Indiana for Hield and Miles Turner. Then maybe they can make some sort of run at it. I mean, who the hell thought that Utah Jazz would have the best record in the Western Conference, and the Los Angeles Lakers have the 2nd worst record in all of basketball behind only the Houston Rockets? And the thing is, the Lakers could go ahead and lose every game this year. They're not going to have their first-round pick. That's going to go to New Orleans, who could make the playoffs, have the first pick overall, and get Big Vic to go along with Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram. And look at that powerhouse that would be formed in New Orleans pretty quickly. But, yeah, I don't see anything salvageable at this point. No, unless they make roster moves.
And now the whispers are coming out there that, hey, maybe the Lakers would consider looking at an Anthony Davis trade. If the Lakers do go that route, it wouldn't be the typical superstar trade where you're like, okay, we're going to trade this guy and get some nice young pieces and sort of build for the future, because you got LeBron on the team. So you got to be in win now mode there. You could make a case to the worst team in the league right now. And I don't know what you do. So Sap, okay, let's say that they do. It's just a simple Westbrook and those 2 first-round picks, and that's it. And they get Hield and Miles Turner. I agree that those are both upgrades, but is that enough for them to suddenly now become a playoff team, Sap?
Yeah, I mean, they could be the 5 or 6 seed at best, but, are they going to beat the top teams in the West? And I'm not putting Utah as the top team in the West, but are they going to beat Denver in a 7-game series? Although they do have 1 win over Denver this year. One of their 2 wins did come against the Nuggets, believe it or not. Could they beat Golden State in a 7-game series? I doubt it, although they've had their issues as well. The West is a little bit wonky this year, right? Phoenix has surprised us with a good start. Denver's playing the way we expected. Utah's surprising everyone, and the Warriors have struggled. So
yeah, and the Clippers have struggled too.
Well, Kawhi plays once a month, so I mean, when he gets up to playing twice a month, maybe they'll be that much better. No, I mean, yeah, they that could happen, but is Anthony Davis all of a sudden going to wake up and be engaged and be the Anthony Davis of 5 years ago when he was a 27-12 MVP candidate? No, it seems like he's past his prime. LeBron obviously is past his prime, and the rest of that roster is awful. I mean, it's just really, really bad. So where do you go from there? And it's not the easiest place to play. It's not like you could sneak up on people. You're the Los Angeles Lakers.
Sure.
Teams still treat you as a team they want to beat, whether it's on their home court or at, well, the crypto.com center or whatever the hell it's called now. It's not the Staples Center anymore. But yeah, they're not going to sneak up on people. They're kind of stuck where they are. And like you said, you can't trade Anthony Davis for draft picks because that's not going to yield real talent for 2, 3, 4 years. And by then, LeBron's gone. So the Lakers are similar to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa has Tom Brady, maybe in his last year, certainly his last year in Tampa. How many more years is LeBron going to play? So you have to kind of go all in. At least Tampa kind of went all in and, added some pieces for Brady.
Sure.
The Lakers haven't. It almost seems to me like the Lakers front office is trying to irritate LeBron James and spite him by not making these moves.
Yeah, maybe they need to emulate that other team in Los Angeles that just won the Super Bowl and the Rams and just say, screw the picks.
Them picks, right? Yeah.
Them picks. Just go for talent, as much talent as you can, and sacrifice the future for the now. That's, got to be the mentality. But Sep, here's my problem. Every day they wait to make one of these sort of trades, it's going to get harder and harder for them to make up the ground to get into the playoffs and become a seed where it's a manageable first round opponent.
Yeah, you don't want to get into that play-in tournament and then you're playing Denver or Golden State in the first round because that's going to be difficult. So yeah, you want to get this thing going sooner rather than later. We're approaching Thanksgiving. I know it's early in the year, but they've just fallen so far behind that I don't know if they have any way out. It's going to be very difficult to execute this.
Right. But like you said, the problem is they don't have their own pick this year. So there's no incentive for them to lose anyways. And the picks that they do have, by the time they convey, and what was it, 26 and 24, is those their next available first round pick, Sap?
Yeah. Because you can only trade every other year, right? So yeah, 2024, they have their own pick. LeBron will be 2 years older. His son will be playing with him by then.
Right. So those picks don't matter to the LeBron at all.
No. And again, this is the year you want the first overall pick for Big Vic. So that's why we just assume a third of the league is tanking. But the Lakers cannot benefit from that. If you're a New Orleans Pelican fan, root like hell for the Lakers to lose because that gives you a better chance of winning the draft lottery. And then you get a real chance to get Big Vic to go along with Zion Williamson. And that would be a powerhouse. I mean, that would be an absolute powerhouse because then Brandon Ingram's your third best player and CJ McCollum's your fourth best player. Think of that.
Yeah, no, they'd be great. I mean, that would be a major issue for the rest of the league for sure. That they would have to deal with that. So, and right now it's a realistic possibility. But I'm just saying, like, if you're the Lakers, you're either going to make the move or you're not. But they need to pick a course right now and say, we're going to protect those picks at all costs. And then, maybe this offseason say, hey, LeBron, we have a lot of money. We're going to do whatever you want. Spend it. Or, we'll trade you to your preferred destination because they can't trade him this season. Or just say, we're going to go for it. We're making this trade tomorrow, because the Pacers would make the trade tomorrow if the Lakers wanted to. And again, now it's about, they have to make up ground. You're 2-9. You're behind. You're way behind the curve already. You need to start stringing together some wins. And now LeBron's foot is bothering him. So I don't know what.
And his groin.
And his groin. This is what happens when you're 37, 38, Sap. He's gonna have these minor injuries that keep him out a couple of games. Anybody who would expect anything else is crazy. He's not, it's not football where Tom Brady can play the whole season because he's being protected by an offensive line. Like, LeBron isn't going to play 82 games. It's not a reasonable ask. And I think the Lakers built this team with the assumption that he would play 82 games, which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, no one plays 82 games, right? I mean, even Giannis will give you 70 games, and he is the most indestructible force in the sport. And
then they win when he doesn't play. The Bucks won last night. He didn't even play.
Yeah, well, they play good defense every night, right? So I think it just kind of carries from game to game. And I'll give Jason Tatum a ton of credit. He plays every game, plays hard. and has played more minutes than any player in the league since the bubble, which I think they should cut his minutes down a little bit to save him for the postseason. But that's another discussion for another podcast. But yeah, I mean, the only thing I'm looking for right now is to see LeBron break Kareem's record. But according to John Sally, and you alerted me to this, John Sally doesn't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, Sap, this was weird. And he was on I think it's Shannon Sharp's podcast.
The Shay Shay podcast with my man Shannon Sharp. Who
I know you love Shannon.
Well, Shannon and I are LeBron's two biggest guys.
Yeah, and his co-host is the biggest LeBron hater in the entire world, and Skip Bayless.
Yes,
but he's not the co-host of the podcast. This is just Shannon's podcast, right?
Shannon's not in a suit and tie. He's wearing a tight-fitting T-shirt to show off his physique, which still looks pretty damn good for a guy that's 53 or 54. I like Shannon Sharp. I think I like what he does. I think he's a really smart guy, and he's always loved Aaron Rodgers. He's kind of turned on him this year, like I have a little bit, but he loves LeBron. He loves LeBron.
So he had John Sally on his show. John Sally, 11 years in the NBA, won a bunch of titles, played on the Pistons. I think he played on the Lakers too.
He did play on the Lakers,
career, right?
He did.
Yep. And so, a respected NBA veteran, used to have his own sports talk show too, if I'm recalling. The Best Damn Sports Talk Show, period, I think is what it was called. He was on that with Tom Arnold. And so, this isn't just a rando guy. This is a guy who, is a legit NBA player and media personality. But he really skewed into the conspiratorial in this podcast, saying that he doesn't think the NBA is going to allow LeBron James to pass Kareem's all-time scoring record, which is 38,387. LeBron's at about 3,300.
He needs 1,107 points to break the record.
Okay,
so 1,107 records to break the record. He's averaging 25 per game this year. He's had 18 straight years of averaging 25 or more points per game. So if you do the math, another 45, maybe 50 games, he'll be able to set the record. I'm
appreciating that you're doing the math because I can't, Sap. So.
I'm good at math. I'm the one sports guy that's actually really good at math.
You are. No, you are. You're good at math, and you always like crunching the numbers, Sap. So yes, it seems about as inevitable as a record being broken as possible because, like you said, LeBron is, still playing at a high level when he plays, and it doesn't seem likely that he's going to miss that many games to the point where it's not going to happen this season. And if it doesn't happen this season, it will certainly happen at the beginning of next season. But John Sally seems to think it's not going to happen altogether, saying that Phil Jackson once told him that some records shouldn't be broken and that he doesn't think
meant to be broken, right?
Aren't meant to be broken. Aren't meant to be broken. And that's the reason why he benched Kobe Bryant in his 81-point game. So he couldn't break the all-time record by Wilt Chamberlain. And he thinks the same thing's going to happen here, and that the league is going to step in and say, nope, this needs to stay as Kareem's record and somehow block LeBron from ever being able to pass that. I don't understand the logic here. I don't know if John Sally is also someone who believes that the moon landing was faked. I don't know who he thinks killed President Kennedy.
Maybe he can talk to Kyrie Irving. They could have a good podcast together.
This is out there.
Talk about conspiracies. Well, here's the thing. First of all, I think I watched a little bit of the podcast, and I think he drank maybe a scotch or a brandy while he was doing this. So obviously, maybe he was feeling pretty good. Phil Jackson's another kook as well. Like, did somebody get in Phil Jackson's ear to not play Kobe Bryant more minutes? I think he had 81 against Toronto in that game, but he got pulled with like 2 minutes left. We really think Kobe was going to score 20 points in the final 2 minutes. I don't think he was ever really threatening to break Wilt's record. Now, my big question when someone puts forth a conspiracy is why? Why would the league not want LeBron James to break this record? LeBron James has been the face of the league for what, 12, 15 years, still wildly popular. He plays for the freaking Los Angeles Lakers. He still draws the best TV ratings. This story would be pretty big in March or April or whenever he breaks it. He's breaking a record which has been held since 1984 by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, one of the greatest players in the history of the sport, but not really a warm, cuddly guy, right? I mean, Kareem's kind of aloof, doesn't really have any relationship with LeBron. I don't think he's going to embrace LeBron when LeBron breaks this record. the league, I think, would like to have LeBron hold this record, kind of the way Major League Baseball probably was hoping that Aaron Judge broke the single-season home run record held by Barry Bonds, because Bonds is really not warm and cuddly, and Aaron Judge is, this Bunyan-esque figure. And so you can't have a conspiracy theory and say that, yeah, the league really wanted Aaron Judge to break the home run record. Now, it's tougher to break and set home run records than it is scoring points, because LeBron could go out there and take 30 shots a game and break the record. I mean, he's going to break the record eventually. He needs 1,107 points. If it takes him 40, 50 games, that's about what it's going to take. Home runs, look, Judge struggled down the end. He ended up with 62. He was on pace to hit like 68 in the final few weeks, and he kind of went cold. Hitting a home run is more difficult than scoring a basket. It just is. So why would the league not want LeBron, the face of the league for the last 15 years, to not hold that record? Now, I get that true Laker fans have never embraced LeBron James, because for the previous decade, they pushed back against him because they always put forth that he wasn't Kobe, which I agree with. He's better than Kobe was. And I think that's a debate that should never take place. He's a better basketball player than Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, Kobe they hate when you say that.
Oh, boy. I tell you, I think you have a better chance of saying Larry Bird was better than Magic Johnson than you have saying LeBron was better than Kobe. They really get defensive over Kobe. I think even more so than Magic at some point, maybe because Kobe's more current, right? I mean, he played, 17, 18 years after Magic was a Laker. So, they never played together, obviously. But, I think that the younger fans are more Kobe guys than Magic guys, right? So they're going to be more passionate about defending Kobe than, say, some 65-year-old guy is going to be defending Magic Johnson.
Well, so, to sort of that point, do you think John Sally is more like he doesn't want LeBron to pass the record? And it's kind of wishful thinking?
Not. No, because that's his era. His era is Kareem. I mean, he talks about Kareem. He played against Kareem. So obviously, if Kareem still holds the record, Sally, who played on a Pistons team that lost to Kareem in the 1988 finals, and then beat Kareem in the 89 finals, which is actually Kareem's last year. In 88, the Pistons were up 3-2. They were up a point late in the game, and Kareem got fouled. It was kind of a ticky-tack foul against Bill Laimbeer. Kareem then hit the 2 free throws. The Lakers won that game by 1, and then won Game 7 at the Old Forum and won their championship. It was actually the first team to win back-to-back championships in 20 years. So, again, this is what happens all the time, right? The guys that played against Jordan love to knock LeBron, of course, other than Scottie Pippen, who pumps up LeBron because he hates Michael Jordan. It's very complicated. But a lot of those players that played against Jordan was like, Jordan would have killed LeBron because it makes them seem better than they are, right? So I think with Sally, it's like, I want to be a player who competed against the all-time leading scorer. But it's inevitable. Unless LeBron just retires, has a debilitating injury, he's going to get 1,107 points somehow. I mean, and I think he's going to glide by it pretty gracefully and still being a top player. I still think LeBron's a top 10 player right now.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't think he's the biggest issue is availability.
Yeah, I mean, he's still averaging 25, 9, and 7. I mean, he's still damn good. Wish he wouldn't take as many 3-pointers. Maybe he's in a rush to break this record. He keeps hoisting, 8, 9 3-pointers a game, which is silly. He's not a really great 3-point shooter. Go to the basket more. But again, that's going to lead to more injuries. It's less taxing taking threes than driving to the basket and getting hammered. So I get all that. But I think maybe, again, we're talking about John Sally today. If John Sally just went on Shay Shay's podcast and said, yeah, LeBron will break this record in March and it's going to be an interesting thing to watch over the next 4 months, we wouldn't be talking about it. You say something crazy that there's a conspiracy theory that the league doesn't want LeBron to break the record, then now here we are talking about John Sally. So that's what people do in this current environment.
That's true. Well played by John Sally.
Yeah.
If that's the case, I just wonder what it would look like for the league to say, we really don't want LeBron to score. Would it be, telling all the officials never call foul and then having all the players just sort of like Jordan rules, like hammer him every single time he gets the ball? And it's like, we didn't see anything. Like, is that because in basketball, again, like it's not like baseball, like you said, like one, it's hard to hit home run. Two, like if the league really didn't want somebody to break a certain record, and unfortunately this happened with Hank Aaron, pitchers just won't pitch to him.
Right. I saw this with Barry Bonds in 2001. He continually got intentionally walked down the stretch by teams that weren't even in the playoff race because they didn't want to be the team that gave up the tying home run.
Right.
And then eventually the home run that broke the record. This was single season. This wasn't career. This was back in 2001 when he hit 73. Barry Bonds hit 5 home runs in his final 11 at-bats that season. So anybody that pitched to him, he just hit home runs. So people weren't pitching to him. He was that good. But, you can get pitched around. Baseball, look, you can do everything perfectly, and you're a quarter of an inch off, and instead of a home run, it's a pop-up to the second baseman. Basketball, he's going to get 1,107 points unless his teammate frees him out. I mean, is that going to happen?
I was going to say that, or short of like somebody tackling him on every open shot.
Well, that could be Russell Westbrook, his own teammate. That could happen. I mean, Westbrook, although I got to give Westbrook credit, I think he's been the least of their problems this year. Yeah, and what is it going to just be? The officials do not call any fouls, no matter what happens when LeBron goes to the basket, because we can't have him break the record. And why would the league not want the face of the league for the last 15 years to break this record? It's silly.
Right. And he's going to be, hopefully around for a long time after he retires too. And he will be a good standard bearer and flag bearer. I mean, not that, I hope Kareem lasts a lot longer too, but Kareem's getting up there in age. And so, I think it's good. It's good for the league. It's good business for the league. There's really no reason that they would be against this, unless they're, for some reason really hate LeBron James, because every time there's a league meeting, he says, there's nothing you can do to me. I'm LeBron James. Screw all you guys, which I don't think has ever happened. So
he's going to buy a franchise at some point. I mean, I think, look, John Henry and the Fenway Sports Group is going to put Liverpool FC up for a bid. Yeah, it's going to probably get them $4.5 billion. Now they may use that to put a bid in on the Washington Commanders, or they may use it for an expansion franchise in the NBA, or maybe to buy the Portland Trail Blazers. I mean, LeBron's going to be involved in some ownership group going forward. He's going to be a visible guy in this league, even more so than Jordan, who's kind of Garbo-esque. I mean, he owns Charlotte, but you really don't see him all that much. No. With LeBron, I think he's going to be very visible as a former player. I don't think he's going to do TV work, but I think he'll still be very, very visible and doing things with Nike and his charitable endeavors, et cetera. So, yeah, it makes absolutely no sense that the league wouldn't want the face of the league to own that record, which I think that will stand for a while. Look, Kareem's had this record for 38 years. That's a long period of time. And I don't know how long LeBron will hold the record. I kind of think Luka might be the guy that challenged it, because he's averaging over 30 a game right now, and he's 23. So, I mean, he could be a guy that eventually, approaches it, but I don't know if he's going to last as long as LeBron. He doesn't take care of himself the way LeBron does.
It's as much as it is a dominance record, it's a longevity record too.
He's essentially, LeBron is in his 20th year, and he's averaged 2,000 points per year. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, no.
I mean, just think about that. That's uncommon.
I imagine it'll stand too, Seth. But we'll see what happens. We'll see if John Sally's conspiracy theory plays out. I don't think so, but we'll certainly talk about it as the record approaches falling. But that's going to do it for us here at the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap. Thanks to Full Press Coverage. Make sure you check out our social medias at JohnSap25 and at Jet Stryer. And make sure you check out the show wherever podcasts are found. Just type in the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap. And we'll be back later with a new edition of the podcast. Maybe we won't talk as much about the Nets. Fingers crossed, but we will see. And we'll talk to you then, everybody. See ya.